By the time Let It Be finally hit the shelves in 1970, the Beatles had already told the world they were done. What they left behind was a troubled project that lingered for more than a year after its earliest sessions. A record overshadowed by tension, but still capable of shining through musically. Despite all the behind-the-scenes turmoil, the album carries some of the band's most memorable late-era moments. Here are 5 lesser-known stories behind the songs of Let It Be One. The two are Paul and Linda. At first glance, Two of Us sounds like an affectionate nod to McCartney's long partnership with John Lennon. The harmonies are tight, the mood nostalgic, and the imagery feels like a walk through the shared memories of two old friends. But McCartney wrote it not as a tribute to Lennon. It was inspired by the road trips and escapes he shared with Linda whenever the internal drama of the Beatles became too much to handle. 2. Faster than slower.
They slip away across the universe.
Across the Universe was the beautiful Lennon composition. The Beatles struggled to capture the way he imagined it. Their first attempt came in 1968, featuring 2 young female fans providing backing vocals. Lennon wasn't satisfied, even though that sped-up take later surfaced on a 1969 charity compilation. When the band revisited the track for Let It Be, they slowed Lennon's vocal and added orchestral embellishments to hear his voice as it was actually recorded, untouched by speed changes. Listeners can turn to the Let It Be Naked version, 3, a tribute to Mom.
When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me.
Lennon once dismissed Let It Be as something that felt too similar to Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Water. But that comparison doesn't hold up, since McCartney wrote his song before he could have heard theirs. In reality, the inspiration came from a dream in which he saw his mother, Mary McCartney, who had passed away from cancer when he was still a teenager. With its repetitive, uplifting chorus, the song channels the same communal energy McCartney had tapped into with Hey Jude. 4. A John Paul mashup.
I've got a feeling deep inside.
The contrast between Lennon's worldview and McCartney's optimism fueled many of the Beatles' greatest moments. I've Got a Feeling showcases that duality more clearly than almost any other track. The song is actually the fusion of 2 separate pieces, one written by McCartney, filled with exuberant joy, and one by Lennon, reflecting on a string of difficult experiences. When merged, their opposing moods form a striking musical conversation. 5. Mad Maka.
The long and winding road.
After rejecting several 1969 mixes of Let It Be prepared by Glyn Johns, the band eventually handed the project to Phil Spector. By then, McCartney was increasingly isolated from the others due to fierce disagreements about the group's business direction. Because of that divide, he wasn't consulted when Spector added orchestral layers and a choir to The Long and Winding Road. McCartney disliked the changes so intensely that it ultimately motivated him to spearhead the Let It Be Naked release more than 40 years later, a version that stripped the song back to its original intent.